Hare Krishna. Well, big crowd now.
Record crowd this week.
Hare Krishna, Krishna. I love Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Sit on this side, that's where the ladies sit.
Friend from the Oakmont?
Yes.
Both from the Oakmont?
Oh, no, not
Yeah. Shit. Okay. Back to life. Can you open that door for me? Get some air. Thanks. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Oh, sorry, not on the floor. You can put it on the book, on the stand, the song. And put it on the stand. Yeah, the sacred words we don't put on the floor. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, we're going to be on page 342. 342. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the 6th day of September 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 7, this is the last verse of the chapter, text number 30, on page 342. Sadibhutadi daivam mam Sadiyagyam chaye viduhu Payanakale pichamam Te vadur yukta chetasaha Sadibhutadi daivam mam Sadiyagyam chaye viduhu Payanakale pichamam Te vadur yukta chetasaha Sadibhutadi daivam mam Sadiyagyam chaye viduhu Payanakale pichamam Te vadur yukta chetasaha. Go ahead, Marcy. Sadibhutadi daivam mam Sadiyagyam chaye viduhu Payanakale pichamam Te vadur yukta chetasaha. Go ahead, life, give it a try. Sadibhutadi daivam mam Sadiyagyam chaye viduhu Alright, continuing on. Word by word meanings. Sa adibhuta, and the governing principle of the material manifestation. Adidaivam, governing all the demigods. Mam, me. Sa adiyagyam, and governing all sacrifices. Cha, also, yea, those who, viduhu, know. Priyana, of death. Kale, at the time. Api, even. Cha, and mam, me. Te, they, viduhu, know. Yukta chetasaha, their minds engaged in me. Translation. Krishna says, those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Purport. Persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never deviated from the path of entirely understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the transcendental association of Krishna consciousness, one can understand how the Supreme Lord is the governing principle of the material manifestation, and even of the demigods. Gradually, by such transcendental association, one becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And at the time of death, such a Krishna-conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, he is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord, Goloka Vrindavan. The 7th chapter particularly explains how one can become a fully Krishna-conscious person. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is association of persons who are Krishna-conscious. Such association is spiritual and puts one directly in touch with the Supreme Lord. And, by His grace, one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, one can really understand the constitutional position of the living entity and how the living entity forgets Krishna and becomes entangled in material activities. By gradual development of Krishna consciousness in good association, the living entity can understand that, due to forgetfulness of Krishna, he has become conditioned by the laws of material nature. He can also understand that this human form of life is an opportunity to regain Krishna consciousness, and that it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter: the man in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, and diseases, and worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different processes. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by his doing so, all his objectives will be fulfilled. This determined faith is called Dridha Vrata, and it is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service. That is the verdict of all scriptures. This 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the substance of that conviction. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 7th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of knowledge of the Absolute. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatamanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So we're going to review this chapter, which is a very important chapter. In text 1, on page 303, Krishna is giving Arjuna the alternative to what he spoke about in the previous chapter. The Bhagavad Gita describes what we might call the yoga ladder, a progression of yogas which leads up ultimately to Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is, the very term yoga means to link. And what are we linking? What are we linking? What are we linking to? Well, the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita explains, again, that we ourselves are not actually the body. That our body is constantly changing, but we're the same person throughout our life. And so that means that we're not the body. If the body is constantly changing, and we're the same person, then something else must be the person. And that something else is the conscious soul or atma within the body. It's called the dehina in Sanskrit. So it's that soul that is meant to link up to the Supreme Soul, otherwise known as what Prabhupada called the Supreme Personality of Godhead, God, the Absolute Truth, different names. But it's the general definition of that Supreme Truth is the source of everything. The source of everything, the maintainer of everything, and ultimately the destroyer of everything. This is what's going on. In the Vedic, or in the Vedas, books of knowledge or wisdom, there long, spaces of time are described. How this whole creation comes into existence many billions of years ago, and now is being sustained, and ultimately it will cease to exist. It will merge into a subtle state that's not manifest. And then again it comes into being, again and again. And each time it comes into being, we as spirit souls are given another chance to perfect our existence and get out of this birth and death, old age and disease, and this cycle. That's the general long-term understanding. So the Bhagavad Gita is spoken for everybody, for all time. But the context is quite dramatic. It's on a battlefield. Arjuna is the protagonist. And there's a big war about to be fought for the sake of Dharma, for the sake of placing a religious, virtuous king on the throne, rather than what's there now, which is a usurper. So Arjuna has cold feet, so to speak. He sees on the other side, because he asks Krishna to take, Krishna offers, he said, I won't fight on the battlefield. You know, you can either have me or my army. So the other side took Krishna's army. There's one he didn't realize that Krishna is all powerful. But Arjuna was intimate friends with Krishna. He said, no, I'll just take Krishna and hope for the best. And the best came out. So Arjuna wants to see who's on the other side to fight. All the armies are in battle formation. It's, you know, the battle's about to take place. War's about to take place. So there's this no man's land in between the armies. So Arjuna asked Krishna, who took the role of his chariot driver, to take the chariot between the two armies so he could see who's ready to fight. He wants to get a better look. He looks across. There's his beloved teacher, his military guru. He had a teacher who trained him up, and he became the best warrior in the world. And there's his grandfather, grandfather of the clans, and so many relatives, blood relatives and relatives by marriage and friends on the other side. And he's thinking, well, what do I need this kingdom for? If I fight and I win, I'll get the kingdom, but it'll be soaked in the blood of the people I love. What's the use? Better I go off and just become a beggar and leave this fighting. I don't see any benefit in it. But Krishna, he knows Krishna wants him to fight, so he's torn. He's actually kind of in this ontological existential paralysis. And he drops his bow, he's trembling, he's crying. What to do, what to do? So he has this whole argument that he gives Krishna in the first chapter why he shouldn't fight, but he knows that it's not right because it's all speculative. So then finally he asks Krishna, you be my teacher. I surrender to you as a guru. You tell me for certain what's best for me. He places his faith in Krishna's wisdom. So the relationship changes then, and Krishna takes on the role of the supreme teacher. And he teaches him the Bhagavad Gita, which is for all time and for all persons, relevant. So the first lesson of the Gita, as I mentioned, is that you're your soul, not the body. You're a spirit soul. There's a certain Sanskrit phrase, aham brahmasmi. Aham means I, Brahma means spirit, and asmi means am. I am spirit, not matter. This is a very important calculation. As soon as we understand that, then that changes our whole perspective of what's important and what we should strive for. Because if you just think about it, no matter what you are able to accomplish in this lifetime, it all ends when the body dies. But you don't die. So then you get another body, depending on your karma, depending on your activity, and depending on your subtle body. See, there's two bodies. We have the gross body, which everyone knows about. We see in the mirror. We see it. But more important than that is the subtle body, the mind and the intelligence and the ego. This is what we call our subtle body. We all know we have a mind, but we can't see it. But we know what it is, though. So that is constantly accumulating impressions as we live. Everything we see, everything we experience, what we do, emotions, it's all recorded in that big, big subconscious that we don't access normally, but it's in there. It comes out in dreams, it affects our mood, and so many things. So that reservoir of thoughts and impressions and all these things, that is what's going to determine your next body, along with your actions, because there's also a higher authority that's determining according to how you act. It's a complicated affair. So Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita, and the first thing is you're not the body, and what he's basically, the end result is that Arjuna agrees to fight. And he agrees to fight because he gives up his own separatist desire, and he dovetails his desire with Krishna, with God. And this is actually the perfection of bhakti yoga, to link up not just our thoughts, but also our actions, our emotions, everything with the Supreme, and to spiritualize and make it all sacred by putting ourselves in the fire of this divine activity and divine love, really. So, as it progresses, he goes through karma yoga and jnana yoga and dhyana yoga and finally bhakti yoga. So karma, in its general sense, means activity. Now, it also means, it's an English word by now, what you do, what goes around comes around. Right? Everybody knows that. So good and bad. That's also part of it. So karma yoga is meant to give us a way of acting that our actions link us up to the Supreme. And when you talk about karma yoga, you talk about sacrifice, which means that the whole problem is that as we live in this world, we develop certain attachments, desires in this world that go into our subtle body, that go into our mind. And then when we get a chance to fulfill them externally, we do. But ultimately, those desires build up, and we're frustrated because we can never truly fulfill all our desires, you see. And they remain unfulfilled even when we leave the body. Those desires help to bring you back into another body, to get another chance to fulfill them. You see? That's a basic understanding. So, karma yoga aims to purify the desires by sacrifice, meaning that, okay, I earn a certain amount of money, and so that's the fruit of my labor. Now, I understand that if I just try to enjoy that money, that's going to build more and more desires for this world. So I'll live simply, without extravagant desires. And I'll use as much of that money for sacrifice. And the best sacrifice is something spiritual, such as serving Krishna or serving God, you know, or at least serving other people. Just like if you were to send a nice donation to help the people in Houston, then that would be good karma. It's not exactly karma yoga, but it's not going to bind you. You're going to get that money back in your next life. In other words, it's a pious act. You're not trying to selfishly enjoy it. You're doing it for the good of others. That's the basic principle. Now, but if you give it to Krishna, that's the best thing, because ultimately the best charity is that which enables people to get knowledge by which they can break out of birth and death altogether. You see how conclusive that is. It's good if you help others to relieve their pain or suffering, give for education, whatever. That's good. But the best is if you give them knowledge and a method by which they can solve all their problems forever. And those can only be solved when we break the bonds of birth and death and return to the spiritual world. So for that we need yoga. So karma yoga is a foundation. But when your knowledge increases more and more, and you understand always that I'm spirit, not matter, then you enter the realm of jnana yoga. Jnana means knowledge. Basically understanding, you know, what is God, what I am, what the relationship is, and trying to live in that relationship. And then it really becomes more intense when it's meditative yoga. This is called dhyana yoga. It has 8 limbs, traditionally. Patanjali Muni wrote a book called Patanjali, the Sutras, the little aphorisms or statements describing yoga. So he's known for that. So Krishna summarizes it. I'll give you just a quick summary of the 8 limbs. This starts out with the yama and niyama. These are moral principles, because the whole idea in yoga is to calm the mind, is to stop this mad mind from going everywhere and simply focus, really concentrate, dhyan. You know, so you come to the point of samadhi, which is complete absorption. Not easy. So Krishna gives a summary in chapter 6. It was the previous chapter. And he basically says, go alone. Go to the Himalayas or somewhere. It has to be sacred. You can't have all of this distraction in the city. You know, this is the first thing, alone. And you practice yama and niyama. Yama are the don'ts, and niyama is the do's. And, you know, don't do anything that we're used to doing here. And what you do is that you practice pranayama, which is the breathing technique, which is very good for calming the mind, strengthening the body. It talks about sitting posture, you know, with your back, head, and neck in a straight line. It helps to concentrate. We can testify when we do our little japa chanting. If you're slouching around, it's harder to concentrate. If you're sitting nice and straight, it helps. It's just the way the earth, it's anatomical. So he mentions that. He mentions have the eyes half closed. If you close them entirely, and Prabhupada saw this when he came to America, he was the guest of he had no money. He was the guest of a yogi who had already come, who was teaching Hatha Yoga. And you know, every Hatha Yoga student, they do some meditation. So there'd be a meditation, maybe 15 minutes. But some people would close their eyes, and before long you'd hear some snoring going on. You know, people falling asleep. So, but if you have them fully open, then you become distracted. So many things to distract you. If you have them closed, you fall asleep. So this is a half closed, looking between the eyebrows, you know, like this. So there's all of these prescriptions right here in the Gita. Summary. Then he describes the benefit if you actually can achieve samadhi, full absorption in basically the Lord in the heart. You know, you can meditate there. Then you achieve a state of happiness far beyond anything that you can imagine on the material plane. It says that once achieving this, yang labdva chapanam labam hunyate nadikam chata. This is a verse. It says, you'll think there's no greater gain that there can be. And you won't feel any suffering. You'll be transcendental. You know, your mind will be completely absorbed. It's quite a description in the 6th chapter. But then after all this, Arjuna is after all a warrior. You know, warriors are not used to sitting, you know, that. He's saying, I can't do this. He said, what he says is very, very pertinent today too. He compares the mind, believe it or not, to a hurricane. He's got this monstrous hurricane built, you know, And he said, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balabhadradham tasyaham nigaham mane maya eva sudushkaram. Chanchalam, this mind is very flickering, goes here and there. We can attest to that. The mind is going. Mana Krishna. Pramati, very powerful and obstinate and strong. Tasyaham nigaham mane. I think trying to control the mind is as hard as controlling a raging wind. And so Krishna agrees. He says, yes, it's difficult, but it's possible through practice. You know, so he's not ready to give up on him yet. So Arjuna says, okay, well, he can't argue with his guru, Dave, but he said, well, what if I fail? Then what will happen? I've already gone to the Himalayas, I've given up the kingdom, I've given up my material life, but I failed to achieve the spiritual life, so I got no standing. I'm kind of like a riven cloud, he says. So then Krishna says, no, don't worry. You know, whatever progress you make in this life, you pick up there in your next life. You'll be automatically attracted to the yoga principles. Because don't forget, your subtle body is going to be there, full with all ideas and desires to achieve yoga. And you won't be performing any sinful activities. And so you're very pious. You'll be born in a very pious family or a wealthy family. You won't have to worry about your maintenance. You can, or better yet, a yogi family. Very rare in this world, he says. So Arjuna is still not, you know, he's still not so convinced because he's got big muscles and everything, you know. He's not a yogi in that sense. So then the last verse, Krishna encourages his friend. And he says, Yoginam abhi sarvesham madgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhadadeyo mam samayukta mamada. The best yogi of all, who is one who's thinking of me within his heart at all times with great faith and great devotion and love. That's the best yogi. And Arjuna is very relieved because he's the best friend of Krishna. He's always thinking of Krishna. He's a great devotee. So now in the next chapter, which is the one we're going to review now, Krishna gives us a way to practice yoga where you don't have to upend your life. You don't have to go off into the wilderness. It's simply a way of understanding and living in the world and seeing through the eyes of Shastra, we say. So now let's just review. See, the first words he says is, my asaktamanaparta. This is yoga, this is the first verse in the 7th chapter, page 303. Now here, Sanaprita, how by practicing yoga in full conscious me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. So the whole idea is to link the consciousness up to the Supreme Absolute Truth. The Supreme Absolute Truth is Krishna. If we can become attached to Krishna, then the mind will automatically go there. Why do we have to draw the mind away? Because the mind doesn't want to think of a white light. It doesn't want to think of some design forever. You know, it wants to be fully absorbed in personal relationship. If we're able to think of the most attractive object that we can think of, then the mind will be automatically attracted. So that's what Krishna is saying. But he's saying that it's when you know this, I shall now declare the full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. Phenomenal and numinous, this is text 2 on page 305. Phenomenal means what we commonly call material. Numinous means spiritual. So it's both things we have to understand. How is Krishna in this world, and how is Krishna in our heart? You see? This being known, nothing further should be known. If you know matter and spirit in the control of both, you know everything. So then he says in text 3, it's rare for someone to get into this. Manushyanam sahasreshu. Out of many thousands among men, and you have to understand, Srila Prabhupada learned English in like the early 20th century in India. And at that time, the word man or men was being used for human being. So don't feel bad. I mean, this means human beings. Out of many thousands of people, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So even the try is rare, and to understand, to achieve perfection in yoga is but we can do it. It's practical. So then he describes the different energies that we experience every day. He uses the word earth, water, fire, air, ether, solid matter, liquids, radiant energy like this electricity, this is fire, air, we know, air, gases of all kind, ether or space, then what I mentioned, the mind, the intelligence, and ego. These are 8 progressively subtle material energies that Krishna says they're my energies. They come from me. But they're separated from me. They're material. So, then he says there's a higher energy. These are called apara. Apara means not supreme. Then para means supreme or transcendental. Besides these material energies, there's another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of material nature. That's us. We ourselves are energy, are Krishna's energy. It said we were part and parcel in the 15th chapter. The word anksha is used, it means part. Just like a particle of gold is gold, but it's not the same as the gold mine, gold bar, but it's still gold. So we're pure spirit, but we're minute and infinitesimal. Therefore, we can be covered by the lower energy. But we belong to the superior energy. And the whole point of the yoga is to revive that superior consciousness so that we're no longer bound by the material side. So these living entities ourselves, we're sustaining this, just like we sustain the body. The body is the body and works as a body as long as we're inside. When we leave, because the body is untenable, that's called death. And the body reverts to its earth, water, fire, everything. It's simple. But the good news is, you'll never die. The bad news is, as long as you're in material consciousness, you think you'll be dying. And it's as if you're dying. But we do not die. So then he goes on, and he says, everything in existence is a combination of matter and spirit. And it's all emanating from me. And then a very important verse 7, there's nothing superior to me. Everything in this universe is strung on me like pearls strung on a thread. Now when you have a really nice pearl necklace, you don't see the thread. You just see the pearls, right? So we can't see Krishna. But he's sustaining everything. He's all pervading. But he's hidden, because we don't have the vision to see. The yoga develops the vision so you can see God in everything. And so, and then in the next verses he describes that. Okay, every day we drink some water. I'm the taste of water. Why? Because I'm the source of the water and the source of your tongue and the source of your tasting. So I'm there in the tasting. So think of me when you drink water. The light of the sun and the moon, when do we not experience those? The sound of Om in the Vedas, Krishna is, and indeed any sound is also me. Then text 9, the fragrance of the earth. I am the heat and fire, the life of all that lives, the penance of the ascetics. I am the original seed of all existence, the intelligence of the intelligent, the prowess of all powerful men. So these are things we experience all the time, one or more of these. So there's ideas that when we do experience them, we should think of these verses and think, oh, this is Krishna, this is Krishna, this is how you see Krishna everywhere. That's the belt of yoga. The strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I'm sex that's not contrary to religious principles. Kama, raga, vivarjitam. So there are all these proper principles for engaging in sex, and Krishna, I am that. And then the general principle is, whatever is in this world, consisting of the three modes of nature, that's another topic we can deal with, but the whole world moves on these different modes, are manifested by my energy. I'm in sense everything, but I'm independent. I'm not under the modes of nature, for they are within me. Now this introduces an idea that one of our great avatars, Lord Chaitanya, gave. He was a great pundit as well. And this is the idea of oneness and difference. Simultaneous oneness and difference, which is kind of inconceivable, but it's a very important concept. And we have various ways of understanding it, like the sun and the sunshine. There's a oneness there. The sunshine has heat and light, right? That's why we like it in the winter, especially. There's light heat and there's light. So what is the sun? It's full of so much heat and light. But the sun is not the sunshine is not the sun. But there's a oneness there and a difference. There's a oneness and difference. Similarly, we're pure spirit, and Krishna is pure spirit. He's a person, we're a person. He's eternal, we're eternal. He's conscious, we're conscious. There's a oneness there, but it's the oneness of the ocean and the drop of water. We're infinitesimal, he's infinite. But when we're linked up in this relationship of loving devotion, then that's our natural situation. In other words, we really become happy not when we serve our senses and please our senses, but when we use our senses to serve Krishna. It's inconceivable, because as soon as we say that, well, serve, yeah, okay, that's great, but what about me? Okay, I like serving, but I like to help people, but I have to have my own thing, my own needs. But you're forgetting that we're part and parcel of Krishna. When we actually serve Krishna, we become happy spiritually. And the really great part about it doesn't depend on the state of the body. I'm 70 years old. I mean, my senses, are not what they used to be. But I can enjoy like anything on the spiritual platform. You know, it's all the sound links you up, this Hare Krishna mantra. But so many other sounds. I'll give you an example. 40 years ago, no, it's not 40, it was 1980. Well, no, this particular verse was 1975, so it's more than 40 years ago. This verse, this is a Sanskrit sound vibration, which describes an aspect of Krishna. I learned this verse, and the Sanskrit means perfectly composed language. You can do things with this language you can't do in any others, and especially with meter. You know, in English we have, like, you know, I've written some poems. It says, with lovely peacock plume upon his head, and fragrant flower placed upon each ear, he enters Braja's woods with graceful tread, a handsome dancing actor without peer. Now there's a certain name to that meter. It's called the iambic pentameter. This is the same meter for the Iliad and the Odyssey. You've heard of those, right? The Greek poems. And so it's called the heroic meter, you know. But it's pretty, you know, it's okay. You know, it's okay. But now listen to the Sanskrit. This is describing the beauty of Krishna. Madoram madoram babodasya vibho madoram madoram vadanam madoram madugandhi madusmitame tadaho madoram 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 madoram. Now that's a simple one, but it's sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form, sweet is still his face so fair, but his honey-scented gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. So God is infinite, but what does that mean? If he's a person, how do you have an infinite person? Well, one of the ways is the beauty is beyond what we can possibly conceive on a material plane. Who can imagine infinite beauty? Infinite power, maybe. You know, you create so many universes and you can go everywhere. Knowledge, omniscience. There's these basic three qualities, every religion, Christianity. Omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, right? Knows everything, is everywhere, and is all powerful. But how does that play out when you have a person who has his own world and everything idyllic? So that's revealed to us through the language of the Shastra, the different scriptures. This is a book called the Krishna Karnamrita by a great realized soul who lived in the 13th century or 12th century AD, way before Lord Chaitanya. And he wrote this book, which means this book is nectar for Krishna's ears. Whoa, you got to be pretty advanced to be able to understand that what I'm writing, Krishna is enjoying. You know, normally devotees say, well, I'll write it, I hope Krishna likes it. But he was so confident that he said, yeah, Krishna's enjoying this. So he wrote many of this. This is one of 112 in this book. So a devotee, you know, who enjoys through glorifying Krishna, meditating on the beauty of the Supreme Person, then it doesn't matter how old you are. As you can think of this, even if you can't chant it, you can think of it, hear it, and it's a spiritual enjoyment. Whereas if you're depending on your body and your senses for enjoyment, oh my God, what a disaster! Now I'm getting old. I can't walk as fast. I can't see as well. I can't hear. You know, that's sad. It's sad. In your youth, you know, you don't worry about it. I remember when I was young, you know, I think most of my people, I'm constitutionally a young person. And there's those poor old people. Well, that's too bad for them, you know. I feel for them. You know, we work on that. It's like you work with the old people, right? So actually, this is a good job. I worked in a hospital, which is not that far from where you're doing. And so, if you're intelligent, which you are, you can see, okay, that's going to be me one day, right? So, by coming here, you're doing the best thing for that contingency. How to break out of this syndrome of old age, disease, and death that we're going around and around again, and how to live a life so that in your old age you're still able to enjoy, because you're enjoying on the spiritual platform. Our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he came to America in 1965 at age 69. He was already, you know, his health wasn't the greatest. He was robust, but still, he came not on a plane, not on an ocean liner, but he came on a cargo ship, because he had no money, he had to beg passage. Even that was difficult. And so, you know, it was not designed for comfort, you know, and all of the, and he'd never been on a ship before. He had seasickness, and then he had 2 heart attacks. And, but then the Atlantic, we know how wild the Atlantic is at this time of year. So this is when he came. He came in September. But the Atlantic was as calm as a lake. And the captain had his wife with him on the ship. And she said, please come back with us. We've never had a passage that calm, Swami. You know? So we can say, oh, there was a divine intervention to cool everything out so Prabhupada could make it to America. So he came to America, and for like 6 or 8 months, he really didn't make much headway. You know, it was an alien thing. He had some books with him. The writing was difficult. Just like even now, reading this is not so easy to understand. But then he found some people. It was in the middle of the 60s, and there was the hippie era. You've all read about it. It was the greatest story. Well, I lived through it. And he came to one of the 2 main parts of the country, of the world, where that was flowering. The Lower East Side of New York. And the other side, which became even bigger, of course, was Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, which he went to also in 1967. But just at the time when there was all of this questioning, people were dropping acid, they were, you know, opening up to the east, George Harrison, the Beatles were coming in, you know, Maharishi. It was just a perfect time. And he found a fertile ground for some of these ideas, and especially for the chanting of Hare Krishna. Once you try the chanting, then it opens you up to the reality of all of this. Otherwise, it can remain very theoretical, because you know it's really, you've experienced it. So anyway, let's see if we can finish this review. It's getting a little late. So he goes on here, and then he's describing how everything is resting on me. I am the basis of everything. He talks about the 3 modes of nature in 12 and 13. Deluded by the 3 modes, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. And then text 14 is very memorable. Because we can't break out. The divine energy of mind, consisting of the 3 modes of nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So these 3 modes, it's hard to, you know, it's a short time we have. But think of it this way. When you're in the mood or mode of enjoyment, you know, and basically you're focused on that, you know, for most of your time, and that is, well, okay, how can I make a bunch of money so I can enjoy, you know? And the typical example is like these hotshot Wall Street guys. You probably read about them, you know. They come out of school, MIT, you know, and they go work on Wall Street. They'll work 80 hours a week, so they can get a foothold and get it, you know, they start making their millions, you know. And they got these dreams, and they live in New York City. Nobody can live in New York City unless you have a lot of money now, unless you live on the street. And and so it's that's the go. That's the mode of passion. How can I enjoy? How can I get money to enjoy? You know, and like this. The mode of ignorance is like, oh, let me just lie back. You know, tomorrow. The basic mood of the mode. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll clean tomorrow. You know, let's blow a little weed. You know, just. In other words, it's covering the consciousness. Normally, to try to escape from reality. The mode of goodness, on the other hand, that's where you inquire philosophically. You want to lead a pure life. You know the importance of you know, yoga and things like that. And this is why we're here. We want to attract to the mode of goodness. So these modes are constantly, you know, no one is purely in material mode. The mode of goodness is a tinge of passion. You can fall into that, even mode of ignorance, you know. And even if you're in the mode of ignorance, sometimes you have flashes of the mode of passion. Let me get myself together. Let me clean myself up. You know what I'm saying? But these modes are acting all the time. And so they're binding us. So Krishna says here, this divine energy of mind consisting of the modes of nature is difficult to overcome. It really means impossible on your own. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So what does that mean, to surrender to me? It means to find out how to act so that we stay linked up to Krishna. And it basically means, what does he want us to do? Like Arjuna was fighting it, fighting the fighting. He didn't want to fight. And at the end he surrendered, says, I'll do it. And so he transcended the modes of nature. And he was empowered to win the battle, and he was, linked. So we don't have to do that. But there's a whole series of things that we can do, beginning with, there's do's and don'ts. In any discipline, there's always the do's and the don'ts. So the do's is chant this name. We can do it through our meditation, through beads, or just singing together, clapping. That's called Sankirtan. But absorb your mind in the sound of these words. That's the first thing. And the don'ts, well, there's so many things. Just like we're vegetarians. That's an important aspect. And it's not just vegetarians, but we offer our food to Krishna. It becomes a spiritual act. And it becomes prasadam. So how to eat, giving up intoxication is not necessary. It just clouds your mind. We want to transform our consciousness. That's why we take intoxication. But the wholesome way to do it is through this process of bhakti yoga. And so the do's and the don'ts, that's what it means to surrender. And then one can cross beyond these. Then he describes those who don't do it in text 15. The miscreants, those who are foolish and demonic. And then he describes those who do surrender or approach him. Chatu Chatu means four. One who's distressed, right? The one who wants wealth or just prosperity. One who's inquisitive, and one who really is searching for knowledge. One who is really looking for knowledge is the best. He mentions in 17, 18. 19, another very significant verse. Many, many lives we can spend searching for real knowledge. But once one understands that I am everything, as was explained through his energies, he surrenders unto me, that's a real Mahatma. Very rare. So that's what we're trying to do. Then in the next few verses, he condemns demigod worship. Text 20. He says, if you want to, if your knowledge is stolen or contaminated by material desire, you won't surrender to me, because you're not going to get material things from Krishna. You get the ultimate spiritual benefit. But if you want to go to heaven, material heaven, and enjoy like anything, then there are gods you can worship, like Indra. So you worship other gods. But basically, just to, whatever you want to worship, I'll make your faith strong. But those benefits are actually coming from me, but not directly. And they're temporary. Remember, we're eternal. We want to look for the eternal benefits. Anything that we get that's temporary benefit is destroyed by time and leaves us with what? The desire for something temporary, and that desire brings us back. So we're looking for the eternal benefit that will take us right out of the material world. So it can't be worship any gods. It has to be worship of Krishna. And then he describes in the 24 various philosophical mistakes, the thinking that the ultimate reality is impersonal, and that the personality of Godhead is derived from the impersonal. That's a vyaktam vyaktamapannam. That's a philosophical point. And then he's describing again how people cannot understand him because they're covered by Maya, by the illusory energy. So it's difficult to understand God. And then he's describing himself as omniscient. Text 26, I know everything in the past, everything is happening now, everything will happen in the future. I know every soul, but no one knows me. I'm hidden, except my devotees. And then the last three verses of the chapter 4, 27, 28 to 9:30, he's describing first in 27 how we enter into this world. We're originally in the spiritual world, but we fell. For all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. So this attraction and repulsion to the things of this world is what constitutes our delusion of the duality. That this is good, this is bad. Actually, it's just Krishna's energy moving. Nothing is good or bad in this world. In a sense, it's all bad because it distracts us from Krishna. So this is an important understanding, how to overcome this delusion of duality. And that's described in the next verse. That one who gives up sinful activity and is just doing Krishna conscious activity can overcome this delusion of duality and practice bhakti yoga with firm determination. Because we're so conditioned and habituated to be under the mode of passion, so that it's hard to be determined. But that's how it can be done. And then what the result is, one becomes liberated from old age and death, and taking shelter of Krishna. He understands Brahman, which is pure spirit, Adhyatman, which is the soul, and Karma, what is activity, Adibhuta, which is the nature of this world, the principle governing the material manifestation. And Adi Yajna, which is the principle of sacrifice. Remember I mentioned Karma Yoga, where sacrifice is there, Yajna. So basically, Krishna is the Adi Yajna, the master of all sacrifices. And then, the punchline is, Priyana Kale Pichamam Tepaduyakta, with thus controlled mind, they can know me at the time of death. And that's explained in the beginning of the next chapter. That the whole final exam is, can you remember God at the time of death? If you're able to, you can go to God, and you don't have to come back again. It's the whole training, what we're aiming for. And so that's the review of this chapter. And any questions? We're almost out of time.
Krishna has omnipotent energy.
Yeah.
And karma, we have some karma, right?
Well, karma means different things. Yeah, we have some latent karma that's a result of previous activities.
So my question is regarding these hurricanes. How does Krishna's energy mix with the karma?
It's a very complicated affair.
Oh.
Everyone in, the sufferings and enjoyments that we get in this world, material, are all result of something that we've done in this life or previous lives. And how to organize all that. Someone has an accident on I-5, so suppose they hit another car, so there's two people involved. So that means that the super soul is watching and bringing, okay, these two people are going to reap part of their karma at this time. I mean, it's a very, very complicated affair, and that's why you have to be omniscient to be able to run the whole thing, and that's Krishna. But he does it through the agents of the material energy. All of these material elements are under the control of different gods, just like there's Varuna, in charge of the waters, and Vayu in charge of the air. So the air and the water are getting together to make this, big hurricane things. And a whole bunch of people are reaping some bad karma at the same time. And they're all watching that map, where is it coming? I lived in South Florida. I lived in Miami for 6 years. And this time of the year, we'd always be watching those maps. So look, it's building in the Atlantic. Is it coming our way? Oh my God, do we got to get out of town? Huh? Yes, it's doing it now. There's another one coming because of so and then there's this collective karma. What is global warming? Everybody affects everybody else. If I'm driving my car, well, I got to drive my car to work. But then there's another 100 million people who are driving their cars. Maybe we should get together and figure out how to have hybrids where there's less, But there's a whole bunch of other people who are of the demoniac nature, who control billions of dollars, who are their whole point is, how can we convince enough people that the science isn't real, so that we can extract more oil and make more money. Or this Houston business. I mean, you read about it, and how so much of it, was made much worse because they have no zoning there in Texas. They're against the government. So we just build, and they paved up, the hundreds of square miles of the Houston area. It's as big as New Jersey. In fact, they're all paved up. That means the water can't get absorbed. And when it rains, it's done before the flood, it becomes worse and worse, and then you have this biblical rains coming down, 56 inches. It's horrific. Plus, you've got all of those petrochemical companies without restrictions. They have to shut down, release all their pollutants. You got the EPA sites. It's like, it's apocalypse for those people. So that's all karma coming due. So, bad karma. So Krishna's aware of that. He's not directly involved, but he has his agents working on it. And it's all to teach us, this isn't your home. Live simply and cultivate this consciousness and get out and go back home, back to Godhead. And on that note, we'll begin our preparing for the arti. We do have another ceremony. Please stay with the kirtan. Were you able to last time?
Yes,
Okay, maybe your friend can. Is this your first time?
yes.
Okay. So you'll hear a little singing and dancing. And you'll see the deep.
We don't have time for much. Let's go. I went over that.
So, they came back? Your wife is back?
Not yet.
Oh, nice.
Not yet. When? Tomorrow.
Because you said 2 weeks ago. It seemed like 3 weeks ago.
No. Finally.
So, we'll enter chapter 8. Okay.
Okay, yeah. Moving right along.
More days left.
Oh, of this month?
Yeah.
Krishna Ram.
Well, so we're on our own.
Concrete.
Oh, and you're going to Ohio?
No, yes, I go to Alaska. This is our normal we got. There's another brewer. Oh, is that it? Yes.
Yeah.
Fight this and
Oh, you're going to Gainesville?
Yeah, Alachua, northern Florida, and then to Ohio, Columbus, and then swinging over to Tucson,
Oh,
Phoenix.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
the whole tour.
What time?
Is
I'll
that
be here all
where
day.
Nalini is?
just
Oh.
be there.
Nalini?
Nalini is in Alachua.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's all in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you want me to put it?
No, concrete bench outside this Krishna.
15th
There's a
or
concrete
the
bench out
14th?
there?
Yeah.
You said the 14th?
14.
Where do you want me to put it?
About a week.
What, then only this.
Let's do it. Walk and talk.
Oh, okay.
Just show me later.
Okay.
So that's your book, huh?
Yes.
Nice. Now, we don't want to leave you without any literature. We have some free literature up front.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually came 2 Thursdays ago
Oh, you did?
and got a cookie with
Okay.
some recipes.
So you went to the lounge?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're not entirely.
I'm sorry?
Just leave the back. All right. Make sure that no, back.
Yeah.
No, we don't do that. Oh.
I mean, I would.
You got our own quest. He's around, probably in the lounge. I think he's talking to his wife. Did you go on a talk, Jack? Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurambani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Pastachari Shatarine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurambani Pracharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Yadvaita Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Giridhari, Radha Giridhari, Radhe. Gopremanande Hari Hari Bol. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parivrikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namat Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Taladhalarandayine. Hiranyakashipo vakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito nishringa parato nishringo. Yato yato yamitato nishringa. Bahe nishringo rindaye nishringo. Nisehamading sharanang prapadye. Tapakara Kamala Varena Kam Adbhuta Shringa Andarita Hiranyakashipu Tanum Bringa Keshavandrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Tapakara Kamalava
Adbhuta Singha Dalita Hiranyakashipu
Tapakara Kamala Varena Kam Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanum Bringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Tapakara Kamala Vare Kahama Bhutta Shringa Darita Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavandrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavandrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha
Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare
Jai Nrsingadev 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 Jaya Nrsingadev Jaya Nrsingadev 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 Jaya Nrsingadev 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 Shringa Bhagavan ki jai, Prabhat Maharaj ki jai, Ko Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.
Without this,
difficult. Really.
Would you like a little magic?
Hammer.
You want some?
And pow. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for. Very good. Krishna gave me this strength.
Yeah.
It's okay?
How old are you?
20, my body's 26.
26.
And?
But see, Krishna gave me the strength in here. So I could do a lot more than my body is able. You know? I already know. It looked like it was easy when I was going in, huh? That's why I thank God so much.
Well, do you want something? You can put also this in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because the knowledge, this chisel, hammer, and bigger, and succeed.
Are you sure? Sir?
I was hearing
We're in a little subject.
Yeah.
brains too.
Yes, of course. Without this knowledge, then he how to. So he experience.
Very good.
So how to chisel and the hammer and the
Put our minds together.
yeah together. Yeah.
Oh, good. Try a little bit, we have plenty more.
All this.
And your suggestions too, you were like, no, not that. We do that. We do that. All work together.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the hobby, just
How about a little note?
this, without this solid Gujarati, physical qualification. If this